So now today we are in, of course, our vascular physiology. So we are going to start the microcirculation, the next lesson. So microcirculation is nothing but, first let us see the normal function of circulation. So all blood is coming from the superior and inferior vena cava. So the blood enters the pulmonary capillaries. So upper side we have superior vena cava, from down from lower side inferior vena cava is coming. So all the blood, that is nothing but all the venous blood, enters first the pulmonary capillaries, via our right atrium into right ventricle and next into pulmonary capillaries, and through pulmonary arteries they reach the left atrium. Sorry, not pulmonary arteries, we know they are pulmonary veins. So by pulmonary veins they reach the left atrium. So after reaching the left atrium, and again they go into left ventricle, and from there through aorta, through aorta the blood is passed now into the arterial tree, systemic tree. So next into arterioles, next into meta-arteriole. So arteriole subclassification, the last part is the meta-arteriole. And after the meta-arteriole you have the capillary network. So in between the meta-arteriole and capillary network you have a sphincter that is called as precapillary sphincter. So which usually opens and close according to the constriction of vessels and to maintain the flow in a tissue capillary. So next, after the capillary network we have our venules. Venules together collect to form veins, and after veins we have the blood again coming back to the right heart. So just this is a circulatory flow which is going on. So there is microcirculation between the pulmonary and the left heart, and also the between the systemic and venous circulatory system. We know already, we are discussed in our old part. So input is arterial and output is venous. We know also output is lymphatic. Means for a microcirculation, the blood, the input, the main input is blood. So this blood is coming by passing the blood into the arterial systemic tree, and by the arteries the input is coming and output is going by veins further, like into inferior vena cava or vena cava system. So output is venous, and also remember that our lymphatic system acts as a major output, because sometimes all fluid may not filter get out from a vein. So some of it may be remain, so that remaining part is usually filtered out by lymphatics. That extra 5% or some blood or some fluid is mainly taken back by a lymphatic system. So from the arterial end of the capillary fluid comes out of the capillaries and provide tissue with nutrition, and from venous end the fluid again return into venous side of the circulation. So in capillaries there is endothelial lining. So for example, mm, this is a capillary, how it look like normally. So this side will be arterial side, this side will be venous side, and here we'll have our lymphatic system which can drain some of the extra lymph. So here in this male capillary side, if we have our endothelial cells like this, which are lining the inside layer of a capillary bed. So this capillary is endothelial lining, and also basement membrane. Outside we also have the basement membrane lining it. So the real barrier is the endothelium, that few capillary beds are mainly leaky and few are not leaky. So that leakiness mainly depends on the type of arrangement of endothelial cells, their fenestration, sinusoid, according to type of organ, they get again divided into further types. So now let us see the few capillaries. You can see here few capillaries which are more leaky are fenestrated and few are sinusoidal. For example, fenestrated capillaries you can see in our glomerulus, in our kidney, and sinusoidal capillaries you can mainly see in our liver. So these are the types of endothelial cells we already seen. So sinusoidal, their endothelium to endothelium gaps are so large, and their basement membrane is also not so effective. Means it is also somewhat like leaky type. So sinusoidal is in mainly in our liver. In liver all substances get freely exchanged mainly because of this sinusoidal capillaries. And fenestrated, these endothelium have many pores and they are intracellular. So first by diagram we need to understand that how sinusoidal and fenestrated. This is sinusoidal and this is fenestrated. So we need to understand the meaning, how they, for example, sinusoidal, this is sinusoidal. You can say there are a lot of endothelial gaps, so fluid can easily exchange. But whereas in the case of fenestrated, they are tight, endothelial junctions are tight, but inside only they have holes. So by this they can easily transfer. So this is the difference between sinusoidal and fenestration. And any pores, yeah. So that's what we are saying. So the in cerebral microcirculation, the microcirculation is tightly held. Example, blood-brain barrier. Here, what happens in cerebral microcirculation? All endothelial cells are very tight. There are no any gaps, so that there is no chance of leakage. So in renal microcirculation, it is fenestrated in hepatomicrocirculation sinusoidal. So the microcirculation system is divided into arterial side and also venous side of the system. So the arterial side is secreting or sending out system, and the venous side is sucking in or reabsorption system. Of course, tissue exchange takes place how, because blood is coming, oxygenated blood is coming from the arterial side, so it is secreting it to the tissues, and that is nothing but sending out. Whereas in the venous side, it is sucking in, because now all the nutrients are exchanged, so all the waste now comes into the venous side by sucking in or reabsorbing. So everything can't be sucked in, few are remained and collected back to the venous system, mainly by our lymphatics. So remember that even lymphatics also drain the extra part into the again venous side only. So any substance which is not in lipid soluble pass through interendothelial gap. The substance which is not lipid soluble, you know lipids, they are not lipid soluble, they can only pass through this interendothelial gaps, because already lipid soluble substances can easily pass through our endothelial cells. So highly lipid soluble, like oxygen can easily cross the membrane, oxygen and also our carbon dioxide, so they can easily cross the membrane without any fenestrations or sinusoids. So non-lipid substances move paracellular, and lipid soluble are cross across the membrane by transcellular. So paracellular means in between the cells, that is paracellular. Transcellular means directly in the cell. So carbon dioxide, oxygen, they're all transcellular, they can easily pass, they are lipid soluble. But whereas non-lipid soluble are like paracellular, they pass in between the cells. So ions like sodium, calcium, hormones like peptide hormones, glucose, amino acids, these all are mainly passing by the paracellular movements, means they are not lipid soluble, so they should pass in between the cells. So when blood enters the capillary, that pressure is hydrostatic pressure, which moves the fluid out from the capillaries to interstitium, and it is equal to 30 milligrams of mercury. So for example, this is capillary, this is interstitial fluid, for example. So hydrostatic pressure is what, which always forces the liquid to come out of the capillary. So this is capillary, this is outside, always it forces to come out, that is 30 millimeters of mercury, that pressure is 30 millimeters of mercury. And the plasma proteins can't move out from the capillaries. Normally our extracellular fluid mainly contains plasma in the capillaries, and outside here interstitial space, interstitial fluid means in between the cells, and other cells inside the cell, for example this is a liver cell. So in liver cell the fluid is intracellular fluid, extracellular fluid mainly contains the interstitial fluid and the plasma. So now plasma proteins can't move out from the capillaries. So in plasma we also have plasma proteins, they usually can't come out, they just stay always in the capillaries and create an osmotic pressure to hold the fluid within the capillaries, that is also called as osmotic or oncotic pressure. It is like of 25 millimeters of mercury. So this plasma which is inside, which always creates a pressure of 25 and says it is like so lazy, and it will not allow others also to go outside, that is the plasma proteins, or also called as plasma oncotic pressure or oncotic colloid osmotic pressure. So what it does is always it tries to put the fluid inside the cell, it doesn't allow to go into the interstitial space, that is called as this oncotic or osmotic pressure. So hydrostatic pressure is profiltrate, means pro means it is always saying to go out, that is hydrostatic pressure, and oncotic is anti-filtrate because it's not allowing to go out. So protein concentration is increased in plasma or capillaries, and protein concentration is decreased in a interstitium. Normally in plasma only there are more plasma proteins concentration when compared with outside in the interstitium, and it is 3 millimeter of mercury, and hydrostatic pressure is -1. So now we are talking about in the interstitial space. So we have talked about plasma and hydrostatic pressure in capillaries. In interstitial space, the hydrostatic pressure is -1, and the oncotic pressure is like 3 3 milligrams of mercury. So we have understood outside in the interstitial space values, and also in inside you can observe inside there are more hydrostatic is always trying to pull the water or fluid into the interstitial space, and oncotic pressure always tries to put the fluid only in the capillaries itself. So the movement of fluid in and out of the interstitium from the capillaries is the law of Starling. So Starling forces, because in remembering of that scientists who have found this, so this forces are also called as Starling forces. So the Starling forces are nothing but the hydrostatic interstitial hydrostatic pressure and also our oncotic pressure, not only in the interstitium, also in the capillary. So this is about this, and now let us see the net filtration pressure on arterial capillaries. So net filtration, we have seen that 30 is allowing towards outside, and interstitial fluid is 3. Interstitial fluid plasma oncotic plasma pressure interstitial, it is 3, right? So these are like favoring to move the fluid into the interstitial fluid, so that is 33. So 33 is a profiltrate, that is which are saying that the fluid should now come into the interstitium, and this antifiltrates are 25, that is uh, capillary oncotic pressure, and -1 is uh, hydrostatic pressure of interstitial space. So remember only one thing, that these are equal, that is, wait, right here, hydrostatic pressure in capillaries is equal to oncotic pressure in interstitium, and hydrostatic pressure in interstitium is equal to oncotic pressure in capillaries. So these are equal, means hydrostatic pressure in capillaries and oncotic pressure in the interstitium are saying like they are profiltrates, means they are saying to form the fluid in the interstitium, whereas hydrostatic pressure in the interstitium and oncotic pressure in the capillaries are like antifiltrate, means they are saying always to put the fluid only in the capillaries. So this you need to remember, this is some keyword to understand this process. So by this you can understand the profiltrate is 33 and antifiltrate is 24. So if you take the difference of both, you get 9. So this 9 indicates that this is a you can see a 33 is greater than 24, means profiltration is greater than antifiltrate. So now the profiltrate only takes place, so the fluid now comes from the capillary into the interstitium. So towards the venous side of the capillaries, the hydrostatic pressure is 22. So now we have completed towards the arterial side. Now let us move on to the venous side. So what I am saying, you can understand. So this is a capillary, right? So if we divide it into half, this is the arterial side, this is a venous side. So arterial side, till now we have discussed that 30 is hydrostatic pressure, that is pulling towards this word, and and 25 is oncotic pressure. So all these are about arterial side. Now let us see in the venous side what are the values. So in the venous side is mainly saying that to take the fluid into it, because now all the exchange has taken place in the tissue, so now the filtrate, the remaining waste products now should come into the venous side. So here you can see the venous side of capillaries hydrostatic pressure should be low here, because now it is not saying profiltrate, it is saying antifiltrate, means now it need to reabsorb. So osmotic oncotic pressure of course will be high, so here the oncotic pressure will be high, so here the force will be like this towards itward, inward. So concentration of hydrostatic oncotic pressure in the intestine remains same. Uh, so they are same values again, 3 and -1. So remember that in interstitial space, 3 3 is an oncotic pressure and -1 is in hydrostatic pressure in the case of interstitial, and they are same in the case of atrial side, also in the venous side, but only our pressures in our atrial and venous side are changing in our capillary pressures. So net pressure is inward, which bring the fluid inward into capillaries from the interstitium. This takes place in the venous side. So the difference, if you take the difference, you get 6. So that is a net sucking pressure. So before you have seen, this is the net filtrating pressure. 9 is the net filtration pressure and 6 is the net sucking pressure in the case of venous side. So few pressure which are released from the few proteins which are released from the arterial side of the capillaries are absorbed by the lymphatics and not by the venous side of the capillaries. you also need to remember the lymphatics, because some of all the fluid cannot be taken sucked by our venous side, so some of it is also taken by our lymphatics, and in turn this lymphatics also again drains it into the venous side. So for example, if a substance A need to pass through the arterial side of a membrane, if substance A increase the concentration, it can easily pass and depend on the lipid solubility and the molecular weight decrease, then also you can understand these are all the parameters which are required to easily cross the membrane, like they should be lipid soluble, they should have low molecular weight, so that they can easily cross the capillary and enter into the interstitial space. If not, binding with plasma protein and easily move out. If they bind with the plasma protein, then they may not easily move out. If they are free, then you can easily move out, and the total surface area of the capillary easily leak out, and the thickness should be low, more chance to move out. So all these are the factors which allow the movement of the fluid from the capillary into the interstitium. Example like liver cells, bone marrow, spleen, all glands which are produce peptide hormones. So in this all these cases, all these conditions should meet, then only this fluid can come from the capillary side into the interstitium. So edema, now let us see what is edema. So now till now we have seen the normal physiological process. Now let us see the pathological process, what is going on in edema. So edema is nothing but the excessive fluid in the interstitium, especially in the third space like peritoneum, pleural cavities, all this, and also especially this interstitium is nothing but our extracellular fluid. So accumulation of fluid in extracellular fluid is nothing but our edema. E for E, extracellular fluid, edema. So causes are like mainly the filtration pressure is very high, that is the hydrostatic pressure is very high, and the lymphatics is blocked. So now you can understand the situation. If the hydrostatic pressure is very high and osmotic pressure, that osmotic pressure is very low, means lot of the fluid now comes just into the interstitium and it has no chance to go back, so now the fluid accumulate, this causes edema. So pathological conditions like increase in hypertension in microcirculation, increase of high pressure and arteriolar dilation, venous return is decreased, and filtration pressure is increased, reabsorption is decreased, or thrombosis, right ventricular failure. It is pitting in right ventricular failure, mainly you'll see pitting edema. Pitting edema means if you press that edema in the skin, you can see the pits are forming, that is called as pitting edema. So this is mainly seen when there is no lymph is involved in it, then it is pitting edema. And hypoproteinemia, like when protein is very low, then also this may take place, because when protein is very low, you can understand the oncotic pressure falls. So when oncotic pressure falls, the fluid can't stay in the capillary and just it leaks out into the interstitium. And conditions are like sclerosis, protein losing, gastroenteropathy, protein enroll, energy malnutrition like Kawasaki, and protein losing nephropathy, and filtration out increase, so reabsorption of pressure is decreased. So this edema is called anasarca, it is pitting edema. So anasarca is mainly due to, you can see it is pitting edema because here also lymphatics are not involved, just there is a problem in a filtration and reabsorption. And next coming to chronic lymphatic obstruction, like so here this lymphatic obstruction, whenever the lymph is involved, then it is called as non-pitting edema. So non-pitting edema always related with lymph, so you can remember like LN or NL. So here you can see like examples: filariasis, radiation, tumors, accumulation of proteins, osmotic pressure increase. Then this edema is lymphedema and is a non-pitting edema. So increase in permeability during inflammation, high blood pressure, high permeability, extensive burns, pulmonary alveolar edema. So all this. Left ventricular failure may cause pulmonary edema, back pressure on pulmonary microcirculation, you know this, and right ventricular failure also may cause systemic. So always remember that whenever the left ventricle is failed, it, left ventricle is connected backward to lungs, so it may cause only lung edema. But whenever the right ventricle fail, our whole systemic circulation may get edema, like in splenomegaly, hepatomegaly, like our liver, spleen, and all other organs, systemic circulation edema, because of back pressure now coming towards the inferior vena cava side. And also, congestive heart failure, especially in biventricular failure. So we have seen that if right heart fails, then it may cause systemic edema, and if left heart fails, it causes lung edema. And if congestive heart failure means both biventricular, both ventricle fail, means we may get pulmonary edema and also all organs edema. So this is pulmonary plus systemic edema. So now let us see the body fluid compartments. So this body fluid compartment not related to this. So that's it about our microcirculation. All important points. We'll also see some diagrams from our textbook. So whatever the theory we have learned, now we can understand here. So you can see this is the arteriolar side and this is the venule side. So these are the smooth muscles covering the arteriole, and you can see this arteriole is a meta-arteriole, because arteriole next meta-arteriole. For the meta-arteriole only we'll have the precapillary sphincters. So you can see these are the precapillary sphincters and this is a capillary network. So this side the venules come, this side the arteries come, and here the exchange takes place. This is AV shunt, arteriovenous bypass. Even here you will have a AV shunt. And here you can check out the deep structure of endothelial cells. So you can see in endothelial cells you have vesicular channels, basement membrane, intercellular clefts, caveole or plasma lemma vesicles. You can see this is a typical endothelial cell if you look at it. And you can see a pitted form. This is caveolin, phospholipid, sphingolipid and cholesterol. This is a lipid bilayer. You can see it here with some proteins. And here we can see the diffusion of fluid molecules and dissolved substances between the capillary and interstitial fluid spaces. So from the arterial end, blood capillary, venous end. So here how the diffusion takes place between the substances, and here comes the lymph capillary. If some other fluid is remain, it will take up this and it will again give it back to the venous side. Oh, not here, this is a venous side, back to the venous side. And you can also see some table here, the relative permeability of skeletal muscle to different size molecules. And here comes capillary collagen fibers, proteoglycan. In interstitial space, these are also present, like collagen fibers to hold them, proteoglycan filaments to give support, and proteins, rivulets of free fluid vesicles. And this is the interstitial fluid pressure, interstitial fluid colloid osmotic pressure. So now you can see, as I said, we can relate them. So you can see this is a capillary pressure. That means nothing but capillary hydrostatic pressure. Remember that capillary hydrostatic pressure is equal to the interstitial colloid osmotic pressure. They both are same, because you can see capillary pressure tries to move the fluid out from the capillary, and even the interstitial colloid osmotic pressure tries to move the fluid out from the interstitial space, and plasma colloid osmotic pressure always tries to put the fluid only in the capillary. And you can see this interstitial fluid pressure also tries to put the fluid in the capillary. So that is why they are equal, they are opposite in the case of interstitial and the capillary side. So always remember, this capillary pressure tries to pull the fluid out from the capillary, colloid osmotic pressure tries to always put the fluid inside the capillary, and this interstitial um, fluid pressure always tries to put the fluid again into the capillary, and this always tries to pull out from the capillary. So, and next let us see one more diagram. So that's it, all diagrams are done.